Following is the agenda for the regular Borough Council meeting of the Borough of Pompton Lake, Mayor and Council Municipal Corporation. The meeting will begin at 6 p.m. on March 12th. Municipal Building, 25 Lennox Avenue, Pompton Lakes. Consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, the meeting will be open for public comments and shall be in accordance with the terms and conditions of the borough's municipal code of bylaws.
Please stand for a flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. In conformance with the Open Public Meeting Law, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of the meeting setting forth the time, date, place, and purpose of this regular meeting through notice posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, mailed to all, have requested and paid for same, and published in the Suburban Trends. Roll call, please.
Mayor Sarah.
Here?
Council President Polidori.
Here.
Councilman Cruz.
Here.
Councilman Hinton.
Here.
Councilwoman Kent.
Here.
Councilwoman Kilberg.
Here.
Councilman Benton.
Here.
With us is our Borough Attorney, Rob Russo, and our Borough Administrator, Michael Correll.
Okay. You want to take it from here, Mike, or you want me to?
Thank you. So thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we are here for our 2025 municipal budget presentation. We have with us our new CFO, Peter George, and our Borough Auditor, David Baki, from Wheelcotts and Company. So I think for tonight, we're just going to run through the presentation. I have done something new this year and provided you all with a binder that has both our presentation, my internal budget spreadsheet, and what they call the state budget document that goes to the State Department of Community Affairs for its ultimate approval. And then in the back of your binder, I have our capital plan with all of our department head requests for all of our infrastructure and equipment for the year. So we're going to go over everything tonight.
Now, before we jump in, I just wanted to let it for the newer people here. So, Mike puts the budget together, him and his crew do a great job in putting the budget together. Then they meet with the finance committee, which they did, and the finance committee sat down and kind of fine-tuned it a little bit. We're not really here to change it. I asked Michael, we used to come together as a council to discuss the budget years ago, and we kind of got away from that. So I asked everybody to come back so we could all kind of understand it. Of course, you can ask questions or concerns or anything you have, but this is just an informational thing more for you guys than for anybody else. Okay.
Thank you. So this slide here just showcases all of our department heads, and I would just like to publicly express my gratitude for all the department heads. They did put a lot of time and energy into all of their budget requests. We've spent months and months and months discussing the budgets with them, fine-tuning specific line items, all of their capital requests. So just wanted to publicly thank them for all of their hard work that goes into the budget every year. So thank you to all of our department heads. Okay, so first we're going to start with the 2024 budget and our 2024 tax rate and kind of morph into the 2025 budget a little bit. Okay, so this slide here showcases our 2024 final 2025 preliminary municipal tax bill. Last year, the county tax rate was 0.7. The district school tax was 2.222. Our local municipal tax rate was 0.921. Our open space was 0.01, and our library was 0.048 for a total of 4.085 tax rate. The average tax bill for the average resident last year was $11,422. So just want to kind of highlight what it was last year as we discuss moving into this year. This chart just showcases that breakdown. It's really important to show this to the residents. Our school makes up more than half of your tax bill. The municipal portion is only 24% of your tax bill. So we're here to talk about that 24%. We, the borough, don't really have any say on the other percentages. So we try to do our best to keep our percentage as low as possible for the residents. This slide shows how we compare to our neighbors. So you will see in the last 10 years, Pompton Lakes has had a more steady increase as compared to some of our neighbors. You'll see Riverdale and Wanacue have had a higher percent change over the years. So that just shows, that we're a little bit more steadier. We have a good financial system here, and, we're looked well upon the bond rating agencies. So just like to show that to the residents. And then that $10,998 broken down for the municipal portion, that averages out to about $215 per month for the resident. And you'll see here all of the services that we provide to the resident. Garbage collection, recycling, police department, fire department, public works, our construction department, recreation, parks, playgrounds, open space, you name it. $215 per month broken down. Our debt service, which funds our capital improvement plan each year, is $182 of that $2,571. So broken down, it's a little more than $20 a month for the resident to fund our capital plan. And then our open space trust fund is $28 of that $2,571. And as you know, that funds all of our open space trust fund activities that our open space committee are stewards of.
And that's mandated by the state, that percentage.
That percentage is actually mandated by our local ordinances. Dave?
0.01.
Yep.
Then you can increase it if you choose to.
Right. That was a referendum at the time.
It's the minimum.
Right. And of course, the governing body could increase that if they wish to do so at any point. Okay, for the residents, how are taxes calculated? The municipal tax levy, which consists of revenue and grants, and our net valuation, which is our annual assessed value of the borough, which we'll go over next. Ways to keep taxes stable. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about how we're going to keep our tax rate as low as possible. Ways to keep the taxes stable are to increase our revenue. We're working with department heads to see how we can provide for shared services, to increase our revenue, to bring down the tax rate. We could reduce the budget, of course, which you'll see tonight our budget is very stretched. And also, we can utilize more surplus if we wish to do so. So after tonight, thinking about the budget a little bit, if you'd like to make some changes, these are how the changes could possibly be made with the budget. Okay, and again, this just highlights our 2024 municipal tax rate. The tax rate is calculated by our municipal tax levy divided by our net valuation taxable times by 100, and that gets you 0.921 tax rate. And again, that was last year's tax rate. As we move into the 2025 budget, we would just like to highlight some of the things that this governing body accomplished last year, and also what's on the horizon for this year. Last year, the borough saw the completion of the Lincoln Ave Phase 2 improvements project. That was funded by a NJDOT municipal aid grant of $440,000. So we did complete that project, along with several other road resurfacing projects, including Howard Street, Maple Street, Babbitt Place, Ackerman Place, and Hirschfield Street. So we did do a lot of infrastructure improvements last year. We also saw the Carlo Field press box upgraded, which was a nice addition for all of our youth in town and our sports organizations. We did see the permit come in for our Meridia Capadagli redevelopment project, which you'll see in our revenue highlights in the future slides. Happy to report that all of our 4 unions agreements were signed last year, which is a major accomplishment. We did receive one of the largest grants amongst all of the municipalities in the state of New Jersey for our our Lakeside Ave Phase 1 improvements project, which is resurfacing from Van Ave to Jefferson Ave. So just notably, we did receive the largest grant in the state. So very pleased to announce that. Of course, we sold our radio station for $450,000. You will see that in the revenue section as we get to it. And of course, we did demolish the former A1 Auto Body Shop and are going to work with the Open Space Committee to restore it to a park. So thank you. Now, some things that we're going to have to consider as we consider our budget. Again, the Lakeside Ave Phase 1 project, there will be a local share for that, so we do have to account and fund for that. We do have an ADA curb ramp project coming up that was funded in part by the county. We're looking at future plans for Hirschfield Park, repairs to the Ramapo Riverbank by the South End Trails, of course our annual river projects. We have IT and computer upgrades, fleet replacements. The first aid squad is looking for a new apparatus, which we'll have to talk about. Our DPW desperately needs a new garage, which we will cover at some point. Our fire department is looking for vehicles aside from their apparatus. They're looking for utility vehicles, etc. Our DPW is in constant need of garbage truck replacements. And of course, we have some open space projects that are pending that will require a local budgetary share at some point. So those are all the projects that are coming up. We like to share this every year. I think you can all agree with this, that we like to, with our budget, we want to keep Pompton Lakes affordable. We want to keep residents informed throughout the process. We'd like to keep the borough safe, improve infrastructure, safety, and of course our parks. So those are some of our main priorities. I'm going to hand it to Peter on, just to give myself a break, on how the budget is put together here on this slide.
Okay, so we're put together with assessed valuation, revenue, state aid, fund balance, i.e. surplus, and our tax levy. So if we move on to the next sheet, you can see our assessed value, our net valuation, a little down from the previous year. I looked at the previous year, I did see our vacant land actually is 5 less properties than in 2024, which could help. I also saw residential properties went up 2 additional properties from 24 to 25. The farm stayed the exact same. The commercial aspect, there are 19 more additional properties commercially from 24 to 25. The exempt also went up, but the exempt where it's coming in and then it's coming out. So, but at least that at least helps with, trying to get our valuation higher. It is down a little bit. We're looking at probably just almost 0.32%, so not a massive drop, but a drop nonetheless.
And again, this overarching number of 1.179 billion really affects what our tax rate is and what the average municipal tax increase is. So this number does play into that, and it's important to know that it did go down. So thank you. And this is just a breakdown of those numbers. Of course, residential makes up most of Pompton Lakes, followed by exempt and then commercial properties. Okay, to get into the revenue a little bit, so going into the 2025 budget, we do have revenue problems. I would say that with this budget this year, we have more revenue problems than spending problems. Our spending is actually well under 2%, and really our issue this year is revenues. So we do have one-time revenue losses this year. This is the first year that our ARPA COVID funding has come off the books. So right off the bat, we are down 187,000 in our revenue.
So just go ahead. Yeah, maybe
that
you want
we
to
have
explain
to come up with. We have to come up with
for the newer people here, we got COVID money over the last couple of years to use, and there was a date we had to use it by, and that date is now come and passed, so we can no longer use our COVID money for anything. So we used most of our COVID money up, but this is the hole it leaves us when we're stuck with that, so.
Right, and I would just like the auditor to explain perhaps different ways that municipalities could have spent the ARPA money. I know that, we used it to offset our taxes, but other municipalities used it for capital, et cetera.
Yeah, look, I thought it was kind of crazy how they would allow as much as they allowed. So most of the towns I see used it for police salary and wage, there were some with capital improvements, and the ones that got hurt the most by this, we see a lot of the towns are struggling because the aid goes away, because they were using it for salaries and wages, not a one-time thing. So now you're basically on the hook to come up with that money. If it was a one-time deal, then you do one kind of improvement, you're done with it, then it's not that big of an effect, but when you use it for budget purposes, it comes back to hurt when you don't have it anymore.
So why were we not able to use the remaining balance?
No, you used up all your.
Or we used it?
Yeah.
So we had anticipated that remaining balance in last year's budget. So with all the revenues, you anticipate the revenues, and then whatever comes in throughout the year, your realized revenues, whatever that difference is, it affects the following year budget. So we did anticipate the $187,000. It was used to offset taxes last year, and now that it's off the books, we're down $187,000. So we got to come up with that somewhere else, which is a problem. And we'll get into that a little bit further.
Now, can I just a quick question?
Sure,
On the
of course.
relief state aid, is that tied to anything related to COVID-19, or is that completely?
So what happened this year was, for the past 2 years, the state had established what they called the Municipal Relief State Aid Fund. And the governor, as part of his governor's budget address,
This year.
would assign a number, the formula to the municipality, and municipalities would be able to anticipate that revenue in their budget. Well, we heard from the governor in his governor's budget address for the FY 2026 state budget that he and the state were taking away that aid to the municipalities. So on top of the $187,000 that we're losing from COVID, we're also losing $106,000 from the state. And that is dramatically hurting our budget right now.
And that's all towns in New Jersey.
Right.
Everybody lost it. Right.
And then on top of that, last year, to further lower our average tax increase, the CFO had recommended at the time that we cancel some of our capital project balances and return it to our budget, essentially. So we had anticipated 80,000 of that, and that was a one-time anticipated revenue. So this year we have to come up with that, unfortunately. So right off the bat, just looking at our revenues with what was realized and what we're anticipating this year, we're down about 270,000. So we have to come up with that some other way, whether, going back to the previous slides, whether it's increasing our surplus, it's cutting our budget, it's looking for state aid, etc. And notably, you'll see on tonight's agenda with our regular meeting that there's a resolution asking the governor to urge him to reestablish the state aid. That's one strategy.
And that's happened in the past. I mean, there's been times we've been told no, and then at the last minute we do get it. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or not.
Right. So just looking at our 2024 revenue results, we did do very well with our interest on investments. We had anticipated 230,000, but we ended up with 422,000. Excuse me. So we had
also say that that's an increase of almost 180%.
Right.
That's a huge increase in investments alone, especially on that.
So we had a very good return with that. Notably, our municipal court fines are down from last year. Our parking meters are up 22,000 from what we had anticipated. That's due to Park Mobile and Park Link, our parking permit software. Our UCC construction code, which is our permits, our construction permits, was up 233,000, directly correlated to the Meridia permit that we received, which was over $200,000. And lastly, our reserves for our sale of assets and pilots, our pilot revenue remains stable right now. Notably, the pilot revenue for our senior housing, which is the same amount every year. The pilot revenue that's collected for all of our redevelopment projects is not specifically showcased on this, and I will send you a breakdown of that, noting that I accidentally left it out. But we're happy to report that all of our pilot revenues were collected in full with Phoenix Advisors. We are billing the developers and following up with them and making sure that they provide all of their audits and that they pay their bills on time. And our pilot revenue is up from last year, and our auditor and CFO can attest to that. So all in all, we had a pretty good revenue year. Just our state aid and our COVID money came off the books, and that's really what's driving our budget this year, are those two items.
What approximately is our pilot revenue?
We could distribute it to the governing body.
You don't have an estimate,
Right.
you don't have a round number?
I do actually, hold on. Right, so we have what's called this Pompton Lake Senior Housing Corporation. If you look on my budget spreadsheet in the beginning of the binder, page 2, under revenues, we had anticipated $157,000 for the senior housing. We did collect $157,000. And then at the bottom, reserve for payment in lieu of taxes, that $275,000 is actually the fees that we collected from our developer friends. So that $275,000 we are anticipating again, and any increase in that revenue would be brought in as extra revenue to help offset that anticipated revenue difference to help lower our tax rate next year.
So the big project is not on, Meridian's obviously not on there because of
No.
the work done. So
Right.
these are all the smaller projects that add up to the 275.
And I would just like to add that 275, according to budgetary procedures, you can't anticipate more than you collected last year, right? So if we know we're going to collect $315,000 this year, we can't anticipate that. It's against the law. We have to anticipate what we collected last year, and then any extra would help us in next year's budget. So all in all, the pilot revenue, looks good, and we continue to follow up with our developers and our billing company, and I would add that it is helping our budget, and you will see that when I get to our appropriation and levy cap slides. It really did help us with our cap compliance, which our auditor will cover when we get to that.
You're going to send the breakdown of what that 275 is?
Absolutely.
How many projects are paying into that now besides senior housing?
4 or 5.
Four, maybe.
I think 4.
Lakeside Commons?
It's Lakeside Commons, it's Plum Law, which is next to CJM, it's 9 Hamburg Turnpike, which is by Garden Road, and 525 Wanacue Ave, which are the 4 apartments that were built on the corner.
Okay.
So 4 properties.
By the firehouse.
Right.
Right. So roughly it's about 60, maybe 85 apartments total that we're talking about for that number.
Yeah, and Phoenix Advisors have generated our bills for this year with a full breakdown of what those bills are anticipated to be. Of course, those kind of fluctuate based on the developer's revenues, but we're going to send that to you, and you can look at the breakdowns. You'll see that it was increased from last year, and it's going to help our budget. So thank you. Okay, our fund balance. Dave, do you just want to explain what fund balance is?
It's your excess money that you have to use as you please. You can see that it was changed, it went down by $50,000, which was makeup of the previous slide that you showed, the loss of revenue was down, and that's just basically you're set aside to use in case of emergency type of thing.
Right, so we have 4.9 million in surplus, okay? So the next slide here showcases our fund balance history. Fund balance and surplus are the same thing. So again, we have 4.9 million in surplus. Historically, over the past few years, we've always anticipated 1.9 million in surplus, and I would just like to highlight that we really are in a strong financial position and that we've always anticipated the same amount of surplus. We've never had to dip into that surplus for anything. So we've always maintained a healthy balance of surplus. You'll see since about 2016, 2017, and year over year, we've always had a net gain of surplus.
Which is a good
but
thing.
You'll see in the past 2 years, this year notably, we're down 51,000, the year prior 13,000. And that's just due to stretching budgets and inflation.
And again, just that surplus becomes important, especially for the newer people. When you're short, that's where you're gonna take your money from, is the surplus. And if you keep taking money from the surplus, you end up being in a bad predicament, and it lowers your bond rating, it lowers all the things that the town's associated with. So keeping a healthy, strong, and I thank Michael and all our team for doing that, a strong fund helps us keep our strong numbers in outside of the town with the federal government. Because those things affect our interest rates and everything else.
Absolutely. So the more surplus we have, the lower interest rates we get when we go out to bond for future projects. So that's
Especially
definitely
between
important.
23, for 24 into 25, it's only like a 1% decrease, so you're not, especially if you look at 2016 being a loss of almost
Yeah.
$750,000, and we're only losing 50, I'll lose 50 over $750,000, but.
And that's the year we sold all the houses in the flooding. We did a lot of buyouts, and we lost the tax revenues on those.
Yeah, 1% drop is not, is not terrible.
Might be a good idea to add the percentage, because that kind of puts it in perspective instead of looking at a raw number.
Thank you. Our next slide showcases our general debt service. So this is the debt that we authorize for all future projects. We've authorized since 2022 7.9 million. We've paid off 1.8 million in bond interest. 1.8 million in bond interest. We've paid principal in the amount of 2.5 million and interest in the amount of 784,000. So our debt outstanding out to 2036 is 6.4 million. And you'll see in your budget spreadsheets, we have an annual allotment of principal and interest that are due that have to be paid out of our budget. Notably over the next few years, that amount is about the same, but it does go down. So, a way to produce savings in future budgets is to not authorize as much debt. So just wanted to highlight that. With the debt, we did have a general note sale in 2024 for 3.6 million. We got an interest rate of 4.5%. The maturity date is June 6th of this year, and we'll have to do another note sale.
Explain to the newer people what a note sale is, what that means.
When you do a project, instead of going out and bonding, you're basically getting a bond anticipation note for 1 year. So every year, you have to renew them. And after a while, you get pretty high with it, then they permanently finance and issue bonds. So every year you go out and you pay your DANs off, and renew them. And you pay a little down every year. And that's pretty much.
Right, and just highlighted on this note sale are some of the prior projects that this governing body undertook, including the pond hole, our 2023 capital plan, Dawes Highway, and Albany Ave. So those are some of the projects that were included. And for this note sale, there is a budgetary requirement of note interest, and that's 163,000, and that's included in our budget.
It's almost like basically a loan.
Short term. Okay.
Is it from a lending institution, bank, or?
You go out and get bids from different banks, TD Bank, different Jeffries and Company, all these different places, and whoever gives you the lowest.
The lowest, right.
Yeah.
And that's where that number came in before. We get a better rating. So the higher rating we have, the better rate we get on these kind of loans. So if we had a bad loan, we could get a high rating. It would cost us a lot of money just in that 1 year's worth of interest.
Right.
Michael, just real quick,
Where is the fire truck? Is that in here or is that not in here? The fire truck? Or was that last year? Was that the year before?
We had bonded for a new ladder truck, is what Councilwoman Kemp is referring to.
Yeah, is that in here?
I don't specifically think it was in this note sale. Do you happen to know, Dave?
It could be still authorized but not issued debt. I don't know, did you purchase the fire truck already
Yeah, we got it last year.
last year?
Was it 2 years ago? It was 2 years.
Was it
It's
2
fairly new.
It could be part of those new B&Ms.
It might be in there already.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
and I can check that for you, but.
Okay, so now as we move to our operating budget, just to highlight some of the services that the Borough of Pompton Lakes provides to our residents. Of course, we have public safety, we have public works, we have construction, our first aid squad, recreation, cultural, and senior citizen events, garbage, recycling, open space, administrative, clerical, are just some of the operating expenses that are within our budget. So now we are going to get into our appropriations. So first, we're going to highlight our salaries and wages for the year. Okay. So what we call general services encompasses our administrative staff, our mayor and council salaries, our municipal clerk, and our elections budget, which is down by $23,000, just due to some internal account restructuring. The way, moving money around internally. So those budgetary accounts on face look like there's a savings, but we'll go over that in the next few slides. Our finance department budget, which is our CFO, our tax collector, and our tax assessor, is up $5,500, just due to COLA increases. Our land use, which is redevelopment agency, Environmental Commission, Open Space, Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, and Code Enforcement is down by $26,000. That was due to a clerical error. I shouldn't say error. The way that we did the budget last year, when you have a shared service agreement, you put the salaries in the shared service line, and we had put the salaries for the construction official both in the operating budget and in the shared service account. So it was a double dip situation. So we were able to fix that this year and lower the operating budget by $26,000. So we're happy we caught that. Our public safety, which is police department, OEM, our court, our fire department, our fire prevention bureau, and our fire alarm superintendent, is up $144,000 due to all of our contractual obligations, most notably our PBA officers. So there is a large increase there. Our DPW, which includes garbage, snow, and streets and roads, is up by $56,000. That's due to, again, contractual increases. However, we did lower the snow overtime. The way it works is every year when our budget season is over, any excess funding for our snow removal goes to what's called the storm reserve, and it lapses to our storm reserve trust. We do have a healthy balance in the storm reserve, which is why we're recommending lowering the snow overtime this year, because we have other money that can be used for that. Our recreation department. I found that when doing the budget, we had severely overinflated our recreation salaries, which includes our summer camp counselors, all of our part-time recreation aides, and our director. So we were able to lower that to $45,000. And our library expenses, salary and wages, have gone up significantly. And I'll just let Dave explain how the library works.
Yeah, based on your tax, it's part of your tax rate. The library gets a certain amount of money, and they have to use that to pay all the bills. Most of the time, it's enough. Sometimes the town will help out if we have other things going on that they need to pay for, but usually it's just based on the tax levy.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question.
Of course.
Does that money also include also include their health benefits?
No, that's in the following slide,
Okay.
which we'll showcase. This is just for the salaries, which just to note, the library board had voted on a 5% salary increase, which we really don't have any jurisdiction over. So the folks did get a 5% increase, so that's why you're seeing such a large increase.
So when they have an issue, like a couple years ago, they had an issue with their boiler, and just what you were talking about, their money didn't cover that. The town did have to step in and help them out. And probably some of the people who've been on, we probably remember we had to give a one-time fee to help them with some of the things. But normally, they try to stay within that number that they're given.
Just a question.
Of course.
Public safety fire alarm, is that the boxes on the telephone poles?
Yes.
Are all of those operable?
From my understanding, yes.
And that's what the bucket truck for the fire department was for.
Yes, and still is.
It still is. And from what I'm hearing, it's not operable.
The bucket truck is in disrepair, and we're discussing perhaps looking for a used bucket truck at this time for the fire alarm superintendent, and the fire department does use it too. But
Okay. What about shade tree?
we could talk about it. So all in all, our salary and wages, the police department makes up a very large sum of that. So our public safety, which we include the OEM and our fire department, et cetera, makes up 60% of our budget for our salaries. So a very large percentage. Following that is our DPW and then our general services accounts. So just wanted to highlight
And
that.
I think Michael mentioned at the beginning, but we were lucky enough to settle all our contracts, with our unions. There are some surrounding towns right now that are having real issues with their unions, and it's going to court, and you never know what's going to come from that. So the fact that we got all this behind us for the next couple of years is a bigger deal for us. We don't have to worry about it for a little while.
How long are those contracts for?
We have what's called the Teamsters, which is the DPW and the clerical staff. That expires in 2027. And our PBA expires in 2027 as well.
So they're a 2-year contract,
The 3-year, yeah.
3-year.
Yep. Okay, to get into some of our operating budgets. So we just discussed salary and wages. Now we'll discuss operating budgets. Our general services budget makes up a lot of our general contracts that we have, which could include cleaning of the borough hall. We paid for our grant consultant out of that line item, our information technology consultant, et cetera, et cetera. You'll see that it's down by $28,000. That's notably due to us canceling our grant consultant agreement and bringing grant writing in-house, and by switching our IT vendor, saving over $15,000 in doing so. So you'll see a very large decrease in those budgets. Our finance department is down $20,000. We were able to kind of squeeze the budget there and take out a little bit of excess funding just to further, lower our budget. Our land use budget is down $6,000. On the next page, our public safety. Our police department operating expenses is up. That's due to all of their contractual increases with all of their maintenance vendors. Body cams, machines that they have to use, the equipment in their cars, all of those contracts increase year over year. So that's why you're seeing such a large increase in that. Also, our fire department maintenance costs have gone up. Maintenance on our vehicles, maintenance on the firehouse. So the fire department was looking for a little bit more funding for that purpose. So all in all, our public safety operating budgets are up $46,000, which is still, pretty level. Our DPW accounts are up by $21,000. That's notably due to our tipping fee increasing. We had gone out to bid for solid waste removal, and our rates have increased this year.
A lot.
By $30,000, which impacts our tipping fee. So that's a contractual increase that we had to sustain. You'll see snow removal is down a little bit. We were able to tighten that budget a little bit. Our vehicle maintenance remains up. We have high vehicle maintenance costs. Buildings and grounds. So again, all in all, it's up 21,000. Our recreation department, there's no net change. This account funds all of the general programs that our commission puts on every year. Also our fireworks that we have for Pompton Day. So we do have a healthy reserve and healthy trust funds for the Recreation Commission, so we don't feel that we need to increase that budget right now. And again, our library, which is a statutory obligation, is significantly up this year. And notably, to Councilwoman Kielberg's point, includes the large health benefit increases that you'll see for the library staff. And then lastly, the budget for all of our boards and commissions, including the Flood Board, the Planning Board, the Board of Adjustment, is down by $3,000. We were able to kind of reallocate some things and cut some things out. So
Those are attorney costs also, right?
we're going to go over that next. So all in all, our operating budgets for all of our departments, the DPW actually has the highest amount at 32%, followed by public safety at 23%. Next is what we call all of our miscellaneous budgets, which does include legal expenses, which we'll go over. Okay, so last year we had budgeted $189,000 for legal. We are forecasting that we can lower that to $162,000, and that's specifically due to the not having the need to negotiate labor contracts, which has a very high cost. So that's why you're seeing such a significant savings with our legal accounts. Again, all of our contracts are settled until 2027, so we do not need as much funding this year.
You don't need 730, right? Steve, you don't need 730.
I see that now, and I'm wondering why I'm here.
Next is our borough engineer account. We are increasing it by $18,000. That's specifically because we're establishing a new sub-account with what we're calling borough planner. Every time we have our borough planner come to a council meeting, they're consulting on affordable housing matters, on redevelopment projects. We've never really had an established fund for that expense. So we are creating a new sub-account for $10,000. And then our borough engineer account would be $75,000 for a total of $85,000. And again, our borough engineer account funds all of our miscellaneous projects that we have every year. All of our bonded projects have what they call Section 20 costs included in those. And we pay for our engineer out of those project budgets. But, things come up throughout the year, guardrails, have to look at flooding issues, et cetera, et cetera. Those are where those costs
When they come to the open space meetings,
Right.
and when they go to those things.
Right.
That's the cost.
You will see an increase in what we call other insurance. That's our annual assessment from our joint insurance fund. They have to, bill us every year, and based on claims experience with the whole fund's budget has gone up, which has impacted us, which you're seeing an increase of $14,000 for that. The largest increase in our municipal budget this year is our health benefits. If you recall, we had launched the difference card this year. We did have very good participation. We had a third, closer to a half of the employees participate. But those folks that didn't participate, those premiums have gone up over 20% per employee, which is accounting for an increase of $310,000 in our budget. Our retiree health benefits account makes up $1 million of that. So all of our retirees for our benefits for life are costing us $1 million a year. So it's a very large increase. It's born from the state. We're with the state health benefits plan. I would say that we are going to be looking this year at pricing for a private plan. Maybe we could join a private plan. go directly to Horizon, maybe. So we will be looking at that for next year's budget. Just the hearsay amongst my colleagues, and I'm sure Peter can attest, is that we're expecting an even larger increase with the state next year. Could be 25%. So it's dramatically impacting our budget and is the key driver in
It's
our
one of our,
appropriations.
it's the biggest driver on our budget. And we're hoping also, by the way, that we get more people to join our card program. This was the first year we brought it in, so we're hoping to get a higher percentage moving forward.
I also think that you will eventually have to, when doing the contracts, they're gonna have to start paying a little bit more than 1.5%
Because
for their health
you
insurance.
could bring up for the retirees their Chapter 78 benefits, which they would be paying in, for their insurance while being retired. I know it's a super unpopular decision for them to make, but, to cover all the costs, especially them costing $1 million out of this 2.3, it almost feels like it's getting close to time where they might have to do that.
Right.
Just for us to get back.
A lot of other municipalities, they pay way more than 1.5% for their health insurance, even the people that are working. So I think that
Absolutely.
when the contracts come up again for everyone, that's gonna have to be looked into.
It would be our number one priority
Yeah.
when we negotiate,
And that's like
unfortunately.
3 or 4
I thought you were
years.
gonna do that for the retirees. The
No,
ones-
that
The
was,
retire, you can't touch, moving forward, you can.
Right.
Yeah, the current ones you can't touch, but like when the union contract then gets resettled, it's at 2027, you could then say people who are almost like grandfathered in, they won't have to, but then people who retire at a specific date, then they would
Right.
have to start.
So the $1 million we're paying now, we're gonna continue paying that. It'll probably go up, because that's already paid out. What they're talking about is moving forward, we can change some parameters, like Lisa's mentioning, for people as they retire.
Right.
Right now, we're kind of stuck into that number.
right, you cannot change what has been.
Is there any joint fund that other municipalities are in for insurance?
There is. So last year, we had looked at joining what they call the North Jersey Health Insurance Fund. Several of our, several of our neighbors are members of that fund. We had too high of a claims experience to join, meaning our employees are costing us too much with their claims, and the fund ultimately denied us membership. But we are going to look at that this year as well.
Are there any other funds besides that one, or?
There is, yes. So again, our health benefits is our largest increase in the budget, and we are doing everything we can to try to save money with that.
And that's across the board in the state, by the way, it's not just Pompton
Right.
Lakes. Every state, every
Of
town
course.
is doing
Actually
that.
went up. I think it's 15 or almost 16%, the insurance rates went up.
It's a lot.
Okay, moving down the list, with what we call special police and search and rescue, those accounts have been zeroed out. We've restructured those funds into the police department budget. So that net increase that you saw in the police department operating budget is offset a little bit by the $17,000 and $2,000 from what we call special police, which is all of your class 2 and class 3 police officers. All of the miscellaneous expenses, maintenance, their gear, their uniforms, all of that has been shifted to the police department budget, which you'll see in the prior slides. The account with what we call purchase of police vehicles, we do have some remaining lease balances that we have to pay off with our police department vehicles. So that's why you're seeing $5,400. We do contribute $30,000 annually to our first aid squad. We do have our volunteer length of service award program with our first aid squad and our fire department. So we do have contributions to those members. Our solid waste disposal, again, we went out for a new bid this year. It's up $30,000, annually. So, a very large increase there. And we were able to tighten a few other things in what we call our miscellaneous budgets, most notably our animal control and a few other accounts. Moving down, you'll see celebration of public events is down. That's due to last year having what they called the fire department ceremony.
The wet down. The wet down, right?
No, this was the fire department parade that they had for the anniversary of the death of one of their fire
okay,
department
yeah.
members.
For Cahill, yes.
Yes.
Right, so they don't need that funding this year. You'll see a very large decrease in fuel. After talking with our former CFO, Natasha, and with Peter here, we've always over-anticipated our fuel, and we feel that we could significantly lower that. You'll see in my budget spreadsheet, our actual expenses for fuel are much lower than 370. So we were able to cut that down a little bit, which is good news. Again, contractual, statutory, we have our PERS and PFRS, which is our pension systems for all of our employees. You know, those annual bills from the state have gone up significantly, most notably for the police, with what they call the Police Fire Retirement System, PFRS. Our Social Security matches have gone up, and what they call DCRP, which is a deferred compensation retirement plan for employees that are not eligible in the pension. Most notably for a position like myself, the state does not allow municipal managers to be in the pension. You have to go in this deferred comp plan, according to the state.
We're all in that, by the way.
Right, and any part-timer gets enrolled in that in accordance with state statute. So you see a very small increase with that. Our shared service agreement budget is up over $200,000. That's specifically because in talking with our CFO, our agreement with the Pompton Lakes Board of Education for the Class 3 officers was always included in the police department budget, and we're creating a separate account for that. That way we can better track those expenses. So
We should be clear, we don't pay for that budget. The school reimburses us back for that money.
Right, so that...
We budgeted it in our budget.
Right, so for the Class 3 police officers, the annual budget is $220,000. And that's for their salary and wages and for their operating expenses. As the mayor said, all of that is reimbursed by the board. So there's no cost to the municipal taxpayer for that. I'm going to let Peter go over the last few accounts here. Capital Improvement Fund.
So you have our capital improvement fund from 2024 was 140 to 25 being only 40, so a nice little decrease, of 100,000, which is good. Other capital, which would be our down payments, looks like we just almost took that out entirely, which is also good. But our bond principal, slowly but surely, as we pay down all of our debt, you'll see that our amounts are going to continue to drop. Same thing with the interest as well. Deferred charges, looks like we had none in 2024. Reverse for tax appeals. With a lower tax, we lower our tax rate, which it says right there, then we're dropping from 36 to about 10,000, which is...
I think we've had lower tax appeals this year. Is that
Yes,
correct?
and
We definitely have.
And Bob could attest that we don't really have much on the horizon, which is why we have suggested lowering the account for this year. And then just to hop up to the deferred charges. Deferred charges are what they call emergency appropriations. So during the year after the budget's adopted, if we have any emergencies that come up, we can adopt a resolution, I believe, that would establish the emergency, and that would defer the charge to the next year's budget, right? So if we have an unforeseen circumstance, a true emergency, a bridge collapses and we have to repair a bridge immediately, we could do a deferred charge, but we would have to pay for that in the following year. And you'll see the 40,000, which was included in last year's budget. In 2023, we had a deferred charge of 40,000, which was deferred to the 24 budget, but thankfully we didn't have any last year, so we're off the books with that.
So when we get hit with larger floods, sometimes we use that to do that.
What
Because
about
we
the
can't-
fire? What about the fire?
I don't know, the fire, we didn't have real charges on, did we? No.
Nope.
No? Okay.
At the top of the page, senior citizens programs, I see an increase.
Yes. So annually, we do contribute to our senior groups, St. Mary's seniors and Golden Agers seniors. Historically, their budget has always been $14,000. We had decreased it last year to try to help lower the tax rate. And we're met with great resistance from our senior friends.
They were not happy.
So I would highly.
I know.
I would highly recommend that we reestablish the 14,000
Thank you.
for the seniors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I can walk into the meeting.
Yes, yes.
You still gotta pay your dues.
So all in all, our total appropriations, net change of 330,000, increase of under 2%, which really is stable for expenses. I think we did a good job with managing our expenses. You know, with all the salaries that are going up, our health benefits, it just shows that we were able to squeeze our budget to keep it under 2%.
Which is where we want to be, by the way. You know, under 2% is the shot, is the goal we're looking for.
Yeah. All right, and then just again to reiterate some of our key drivers for the budget. Again, 5 out of 6 of our key drivers are contractual or statutory in nature. Again, our police department salary and wages, our police department operating budget, our pension, our police department pension, our health benefits, and our solid waste disposal contract. 6 of those are our highest increases in the budget. Again, 5 of those are contractual or statutory in nature that we really don't have any control over right now. We can certainly look at a few things when all of our union agreements come up. But again, we're kind of stuck with those key driver costs right now. And again, just a pie chart to highlight our budget in that our police department salaries are 3.8 million, 21% of our budget, and our highest costs to the borough. Followed by our general operating expenses and our health benefits, again, which are all key drivers.
And out of those contractual increases, I work the percentages, and it goes anywhere between 4.6% for the lowest increase up to, obviously, I would say the health benefits is the biggest one, at roughly 15%. So you're not, for the few of them, you're getting the annual, the actual was like the 3.5% to 5% that you're going to be getting every year for inflation and just COLA costs and things of that nature. But obviously, the biggest driving force to me, is the health benefits, because that's up 15% from the 2 years. So
if the state ends up giving us the money back, how does that, where does that go at the late stage in this game?
The municipal relief fund, if the governor reestablishes it?
It depends if it's done during the middle of the year.
Right.
When it comes in, it goes to a reserve account, and then the next year you anticipate it in the budget.
Okay, so we wouldn't really use it this year then?
No.
In other words, it's too late.
It's too late.
Right. The governor announced he wasn't reestablishing it, so it's too late for this budget year. I'm going to let the auditor explain what they call the cap compliance.
You'll have to increase your budget by a certain amount of percentage from the year before. The same with your levy, your tax levy can go up a certain percentage. If you don't use the whole amount, it gets banked, and then you could use it in succeeding years. So it's there's a big formula that goes into account how it's worked, but that's basically it. You're allowed a certain increase. If you don't use it all, it gets carried over, you bank it, and then you can use it in your preceding years.
Right, so for what they call the appropriation levy cap, essentially what this means is we could spend another $523,000 in our budget and still be cap compliant with the state. Of course, we wouldn't want to do that, but we are under the cap. Sometimes municipalities run into issues where you're over the cap, and we really would have to cut services. We had kind of seen that last year. We were kind of over the cap a little bit, but we were able to get under it. But thankfully, we're well under the cap this year.
And there are towns that are over the cap, and they have to make changes. They have to cut services. They have to do things.
This chart here is from the state budget document. This is the appropriation cap worksheet, they call it. I just wanted to highlight our CFO has advised us that with all of our redevelopment projects since their inception, notably the 4 pilot projects, if you will, there is a cap deduction that you're able to take for that, and we have never taken advantage of those. So there's an extra $183,000 that increases our appropriation cap compliance. We initially had thought, when we were putting together the budget with the Finance Committee, that we were going to be over the cap and that we were going to desperately need this new maneuver, if you will. But all in all, we ended up, being under $500,000 under the cap. So we didn't really need it as much. But again, back to the auditor, I believe that this would help us with our cap bank for next year.
You get to carry over.
Right. So it would carry over to next year. So all in all, our pilots really, help bail us out with the budget. And again, this worksheet is what they call the levy cap, which we are $83,000 under. Okay, to conclude the budget, so again, back to the tax rate. Our tax rate for last year was 0.921. Again, the tax rate is the tax levy divided by the net valuation taxable. Again, our net valuation taxable was down this year, 0.32%. So all in all, our tax rate is coming to 0.98 for this year.
And that's done by a lot of the hard work that these guys that are in front of us, trying to keep that number as close to what it was last year. That's the key to that whole thing. We want to try to keep it, reasonable for the 24% that we're responsible for. Remember, at the end of the day, we're responsible for 24% of the tax dollars out of the tax bill. Okay, the rest of it is not us. Even though it is our town and it's part of it, it's not coming from this group here.
So our proposed budget is 18 million. Our tax levy is 11 million. We are recommending the same surplus anticipated as last year. So that would be 1,950,000. Again, to keep a healthy fund balance and to keep our bond rating up. Again, our 2024 tax rate, 0.921. Our average home assessment here in Pompton Lakes did increase a little bit. It's 279,000. And again, our 2025 municipal tax rate is coming to 0.980. So all in all, the average municipal tax increase for the average resident is an extra $178 per year for the resident, bringing your average total tax to the average resident of $11,422.
With no cutting of services or changing of services, which is another big part of this. We didn't cut anything.
This chart highlights that throughout the past several years. So you will see we were steady for some time. But again, as your assessed value goes down, and all of our revenues decreasing, that's the reason for this municipal tax increase. So again, $178 for the average resident.
Which works out to about $15 a month.
Right.
Considering all the increases in healthcare, I think that's pretty amazing.
I also heard from the tax collector himself, he said right around for the first quarter of '25, he said right around 99% of collections. So we are doing it very well. He's given us everything. I think he tries to get around 11 million a quarter. He said he's he's either at that or even above it. So, last year, he said also there were 4 items on tax sale and then they were paid off within 2 months. So I really think, even though, yes, it's a little bit of a higher rate, but we're still collecting and we're still in that higher percentage, which is good.
This chart just shows how we compare to our neighbors in Passaic County, those in North Jersey, and the state as a whole. This just shows where Pompton Lakes compares to all of our municipalities in the state. And again, this chart just highlights that municipal tax increase from $2,571 to $2,750. Just highlights our 7-year history. And then lastly, always love to include this, the dollar bill. Where do your taxes go? Again, average tax, $11,422. For this year, the borough share is 24%. But again, your school is 56%, the county is 18%, our library is 1.2%, and our open space local tax is 0.25%. making up your average total tax for Pompton Lakes. So that concludes for our budget. I'd like to solicit any questions or concerns.
Any questions, concerns? Anything that came up? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next, we're going to go over our capital plan for this year. So again, we have what's called the Capital Improvement Fund, and that trust fund reserve helps pay for our down payment on any future bond ordinances. And that down payment has to be 5% of what you're borrowing. So on the right-hand side of the chart shows our Capital Improvement Fund. We had a balance of $83,000 going into the year. We spent $38,000 of that for the Willow Field project and for our security cameras project, leaving a balance, and then we are anticipating putting in $40,000 as part of the budget, bringing the balance back up to $85,000. And as part of our capital improvement plan, which we're going to go over really quick, we are recommending another down payment of $35,000. So that would leave you with a balance of $50,000 moving into next budget year. Okay, so for our capital plan, included in your binders are all of the backup materials from all of our department heads. When I had started here, I had generated a new form for our employees. Every time they would like to submit a capital request, they have to fill out the form and provide me with an official quote, which, wasn't really done in the past. It's just more of a formality so we can all track it better. So with the capital improvement plan, we are looking to resurface some additional roads in Pompton Lakes. That final list is still being determined by our borough engineer, but we are recommending, based on our cost estimates, $133,000 for road resurfacing. Every year, we fund what we call stormwater and flood control management, which funds all of our NJDEP permit compliance, all of our river work, and stuff like that. So we're recommending $40,000 for this capital plan. We are closing in on the Colfax Ave drainage easement project, which we are finalizing finally. So we are looking for $105,000 for that. There is a cost to that project.
That's the one that's been carried for years with Mr. Popov. That's been a long time coming.
We are looking for what we call borough facility upgrades. Notably, our fire department bay doors are in significant disrepair and need to be replaced. They are a safety hazard right now, so we are looking to replace those. And we are looking for supplemental funding for the Civic Center. Once Meridia Capadagli is finished renovating the Civic Center, we are responsible for outfitting the Civic Center. So we are recommending $25,000 for the Civic Center, notably for furniture, for a conference room table, kitchen supplies, and locker room supplies. As you know, we are establishing a women's locker room for the police department staff. So again, we are looking for $25,000 for that.
And we are putting a
project.
cabinetry in there that's going to support some of our local history. I won't call it a museum, but it'll be cabinetry to hold some of our relics that people could see in there.
Yep.
Is that going to be restroom facilities for the police women?
Yes.
Also?
Yes.
Complete locker room?
Yes.
Shower, everything.
Shower, everything? Okay, good.
For our DPW, we are recommending a pickup truck replacement, so that cost is $50,000. If you recall, over the winter, our Salter is in great disrepair. I know Dan, our DPW superintendent, is doing a great job trying to keep our vehicles running and operational for our residents, but we do feel that the Salter does need to be replaced at this time to keep up with our snow operations. And unfortunately, the cost for that is $225,000 for the Salter. The DPW...
But the Salter can be used for other purposes when it's...
Absolutely, yes. It's right. You call it a Salter, but it's a dump body, and it's used for garbage, metal collection, and other operations. In addition, the DPW is looking for tractor attachments. Last year, the governing body funded a new tractor for the DPW that they're using at the fields. So they are looking to further outfit that tractor. So we're looking for 20,000.
And remember, we started a landscaping crew separate now, so that we're trying to build that up a little bit so they can do a lot of the work in our parks and our fields and all those things.
Yep.
And they're doing a good job as they started, but they need the equipment to do that.
That include a bucket truck?
I'd have to look. I don't think it was on the list, but
The DPW is looking for what they call salt pre-wet. It's my understanding right now, if you put down dry salt, it's not as effective as wet salt. So the DPW is looking for this contraption that they would put on the back of every salter that would wet the salt, that would help further enhance our road quality during snowstorms. So that cost is $21,000. They're looking for a new air compressor. They're looking for new radio equipment for their vehicles, and they're looking for forks for one of their larger backhoes. So all in all, the recommended capital plan for this budget year is $703,000. Again, we did fund $796,000 with the bond ordinance that was adopted at the last council meeting. So all in all, we're at $1.4 million, which is under prior years' capital plans. So I would just, I guess, solicit any questions about what's included.
any questions about capital? Capital is what keeps our town moving. We don't buy the equipment, we get ourselves in a hole, and before you know it, you're 3 years in and it's gonna cost you double that to buy everything. So unfortunately, you do have to spend a little money as you move forward.
Are the street signs included in that?
It's in the budget. And then the next slide just showcases recommended projects that were submitted but have to be deferred. We feel that we can't fund these at this time. We feel that we have too much going on. But as much as we like to defer, it could also be seen as kicking the can down the road. So I would say that, we have to consider these items in the future. Notably the fire department. They have apparatus replacements that are coming up in accordance with their schedules. The first aid squad is looking for funding for a vehicle. We have to replace garbage trucks. The library is looking for upgrades. The police department has vehicle replacements that are coming up. You'll see that for the police department, we are deferring the vehicle replacements. We feel that it can wait a year. But again, they are being deferred and we will have to consider those for next year. So
Fire department pumper replacement, didn't we just get a pumper a few years back?
Now, we got the ladder truck, and the pumper, they tell me, is gonna be 25 years old.
Well, I thought it was, we had got one before they got the ladder truck.
No, nothing's, they're telling us that the pumper's gonna be 25 years next year, or 2 years from now.
Okay, and just back on the other sheet, the security system camera project, is that what's up on the agenda today?
yes.
And 33 cameras we need around town?
Yes, and that was previously discussed in workshop with the governing body and was funded
When?
already last year.
Last year,
And the
before I was here.
Yes, and the bond ordinance was just adopted at the last meeting.
That many cameras we need, there's that much
Yes.
crime and misdemeanors going around town? Was that?
Well, we've had some complaints just recently on things. Help us
Was
greatly.
that request, that amount of cameras requested from the police department, or?
No, that project generated from the administration and with the police department and the real need of having security cameras in our parks due to vandalism.
Because in our resolutions, it's 187,000, I think it said, for tonight.
Yes.
And this says 198,000.
We always like to over-anticipate, which I'm sure the CFO can attest to, right?
Yes, you always think over because you'd rather be going under, and if you underbid anything and it becomes over, then you'd have to pay more. And you'd rather go over and then at least make it easier saying, now I can come to you saying, hey, we're lower now, instead of I'm coming to you saying, oops, I'm over.
In other words, we don't want to come back to you for more money.
I understand that, but all these cameras are going to be on the internet, or?
They will all have their own hotspot. and will directly feed into the headquarters.
And we'll also be, there was a whole conversation, but we'll be tying in with other police departments, neighboring towns, so they can follow suspects through our town, through another town.
No,
and report it.
that's with the cameras on the police cars,
No,
or the license plate reader.
Yeah, but also on the poles that we're putting, if they're using the same systems, they can then follow. Some of the towns are.
Yeah, but a lot of these cameras are going into parks. And they're
Some
going-
are, yeah.
Most
Not
of
all
them are.
Well, not all.
Lakeside Park and Carlo Field and Hurstfield Park.
But Councilman, there are what's called license plate readers in this proposal.
Oh, those license plate readers are in this proposal?
Yes, and they will be featured, some of them will be featured at some of our intersecting roadways with our neighboring towns. We are going to be looking at more of those in the future, but we feel that we're going to kind of ease into it.
And the other towns are cooperating with us or not cooperating with us?
They are, yes. And
All
we
of
had a
them?
meeting.
We had a
with
joint
them.
meeting with us and the surrounding towns, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Thank you.
And just back to our deferred projects, what was deferred comes to 3.5 million. You're looking at a down payment of 179,000. Again, our fund is only 50,000. So again, we do have a lot of projects that are coming up. But we feel that this capital plan as presented is a good start for us, and, we would recommend its adoption. And again, it has been vetted by the Finance Committee and is on for your recommendation. We will draft a ordinance for this spring to memorialize the plan. So that leads me to the end of the presentation. Again, any questions or concerns?
Any questions for anybody about anything?
It was very clear.
Yeah, very good, very good presentation. Thank you, guys. It was very good to have you guys here. The one thing I'll say that in the Capitol, some of our ambulances are getting older right now, and we are in discussion with Riverdale to kind of help us with the cost, because we do share the ambulance squads with both of them. So hopefully we can help together and get some new equipment for them too, because they do need it over there also. Thank you, Mike. Oh, unless you get something.
And I just want to add, you all have the binder. In going through it, if you have any questions, you can please call me or see us in the office. And just the timeline moving forward, we are looking to introduce the municipal budget at the March 26th council meeting, and the adoption would be at the last council meeting in April, along with the public hearing for the budget. So again, if there's any questions, feel free to see me at any time. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who's that? Councilman Cruz, who's second? Hinton, Councilman Hinton, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay. Thank you, guys. We got a little while, 10 minutes. Yes.